Studios. Joining us now, Josh Barton, Executive Director, Home of Grace. Good morning, Josh. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's kick off with announcing once again that today is National Fentanyl Awareness Day. How long has that been around, and what should we know about that exactly?
Well, I don't know that it's been around, but maybe a couple of years. But um, I'll give you a little background with Home of Grace and myself. I've been working in the addiction recovery world my entire life. My grandfather started the Home of Grace 57 years ago. So we have a long track record of working with people with addiction issues. It's been the last 3 or 4 years that fentanyl has really changed the game significantly with addiction. And so last year, as a matter of fact, there was 107,000 overdoses that took
Wow.
place in the United States. So um, again, we've been doing this for 57 years, have worked with 35,000 plus men and women. And I would say in the last 3 years, we've dealt with more individuals that have overdosed and died than probably the entire 50-year plus earlier years of the Home of Grace. So it's really changed a lot.
And where are you located exactly, Josh?
We're right on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Our men's campus is in a small town called Van Cleve near Biloxi, and our women's campus is about 15 miles away from here.
With the seems like this whole situation of fentanyl, which I believe is a synthetic drug. Is that right?
Correct, it is.
It just seems like you never heard of that until last 2 or 3 years, and now whenever you have any discussion about drug addiction, the really terrible consequences from overdoses of drugs, that's always the drug you hear about, is fentanyl. How did this come onto the scene, and how big a problem is this?
Well, it is a huge problem. So I'm going to give you a really short version of how a lot of this came about over the last so many years. But um, prescription pills started becoming an issue years back when opiates were considered not non-addictive. Doctors started using them, and they started becoming a little bit more of a challenge. And when the government started recognizing that, they started helping to try to crack down on prescription opiates. And so when they started doing that, heroin started making its way in from Mexico and other places across the country, and it started taking the place of the prescription pills that people could no longer get. And then over time, fentanyl is actually cheaper to make for the same quantity, so it goes a lot further. So in other words, it's more profitable for individuals to use that in their products. So that's why it's really taken over the market. And it's also used a lot more common for everyday folks. Like in the past, if you think of someone that were dealing with addiction, you were thinking of someone that was almost like what someone would consider a junkie, or someone that's just on the streets with drugs. Well, people that use fentanyl or heroin are often look like you and I. They go to work every day. They use this substance to keep them from looking and feeling sick. And so it's oftentimes people that are overdosing and dying from this are people that you would very unexpected, that someone would think, man, I didn't even know they used drugs, or he was such a great young looking guy that was going to college and had his whole life together. And so it's a lot different perception than what many people think.
Interesting. And so you hear all the reports that just a small amount of this substance can cause death to a human being. It's
Absolutely.
mind-boggling, and I think almost all of us know someone who has a family member or an acquaintance who has actually died from fentanyl. It just seems like every day we see it reported on college campuses, in particular, across the country. Almost on a daily basis, it seems like, reports of overdoses. So
We
it's especially it's especially disturbing and frankly just scary when you think about such a small amount that could poison a human to death.
It really is. We actually have a gentleman in our program right now that he lost his son to fentanyl, and he was actually moving the product, and almost the father himself was moving his son's stuff, and he almost overdosed. He passed out and almost lost his life for moving the stuff that his son had had. So it really is a people have no idea. Well, that's why law enforcement, for instance, have to wear rubber gloves everywhere they go, because just going through stuff and cleaning out a car, they could touch a substance, and it be game over for them as well.
Yeah, really is amazing. So, reading your press release today, it being National Fentanyl Awareness Day, how many can you accommodate at your facility in Van Cleve?
We have a 120 bed men's facility and a 42 bed women's facility. It's really cool. Like I said, we've been doing it 57 years, and we now have
Yeah.
alumni that have programs all over the country. So
Oh, wow.
we were free consultants, but we just opened Valley of Grace in Kokomo, Indiana, about 2 months ago. So it's really cool to see individuals that were really struggling with addiction themselves now have their own 40-bed recovery programs all over the country helping others.
And your methodology, Josh, also includes focus on the power of the Holy Spirit, and just providing the addict with healing and love and kinship as well. It's somewhat unique. So that seems to be kind of the at the heart of your organization.
It really is. As I mentioned, my grandfather started the Home of Grace 57 years ago. In the early years, it was just loving on people and pointing them to Christ, helping them to understand He's got a purpose and a plan for their life. And one of our first graduates, he actually passed away about 5 years ago. He was 92 years old. He'd been clean a little over 50 years. He
Wow.
said, "Your grandfather just brought us in and loved on us, taught us to love the Lord and to love others." And he said, "I've never gotten over that." And then
Yeah.
today we have individual counseling, group counseling, classroom instruction. We have all the other components that we put together for the program, but we still believe it's that foundation of helping for someone to understand that God has forgiveness for them and He's got a plan and a purpose for their life. And when they understand that, and they understand that we love and care for them, then it starts helping put those other pieces together. From financial stuff or marriage and family stuff, but that's the foundation of our program.
Yeah. So obviously there's a physiological aspect of getting clean and ridding yourself of the addiction to drugs, but I think it's fair to say that that's of no value if you don't also address the mind and the heart as well, and that kind of seems to be incorporated into your 360-degree approach there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Without purpose, it's almost like, there's no reason for them to want to get clean, because most of them are dealing with trauma on top of trauma a lot of
Yeah.
times. And so once you take the substance away, then they have to deal with themselves. And so that's
Right.
when counseling and other things starts coming into play.
How do they come to you? How do these folks that are seeking some help, how do they come to you? Is it families that bring them in? Do they just wake up one day and say, "I got to get clean and I'm going to seek help"?
It's a lot. It's a pretty big mixture, but the really cool thing, like I mentioned earlier, with us having so many alumni all over the country, a lot of our clients come to us from word of mouth from other alumni.
Yeah.
If you have someone in your neighborhood that's had a really significant struggle with addiction, most everybody knows that. And when he gets his life completely turned around and he's making a big difference in his area, then
Yeah.
a lot of families are saying, "Where did Johnny get help? Where did Sue get help?" And so that's
Yeah.
how most of our clients come. We have large pockets of alumni in Lake Charles and Baton Rouge and Birmingham and places like that, and they just become like a hub that sends people to the Home of Grace.
Yeah, sure. So it's just word of mouth, other folks that have succeeded and come out and been able to reclaim their lives, because this stuff, once you get addicted to it, I mean, it owns you.
It really does. And we had our homecoming event. We have that every year. That was in March, and so we had several hundred alumni that came in from all over the country for that big event. And so that was always letting those stories get out there, using the power of their testimony to not only help them in their own journey, but it also helps point other people that there is
Sure.
there is an answer, there is hope.
Wow. Josh, pleasure talking to you today, and really appreciate what you guys do, and more importantly, calling to our attention this problem and establishing this National Fentanyl Awareness Day is something that we all ought to be aware of, and we're certainly doing it today here at SuperTalk. Appreciate it, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
Middays, we'll step aside for a break right here. We'll come right